Hey guys, it's Meya. Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for being part of this wild manhwa journey with me. Now, let's dive into today's story. The scene opened in a modest office space. A sky-blue-haired woman tapped away on her laptop, her expression focused. Nearby, a gray-haired man stood with one hand pressed against his lower back as he flipped through a diary. With a sigh, he tugged open a drawer filled with various packs of cigarettes, visibly struggling to decide which one to pick. Just then, the woman glanced up and addressed him. "President, shouldn't you be heading out soon?" He finally settled on the blue pack and gave her a smirk. "Oh? Is it that time already?" he asked, slipping a cigarette between his lips. "See you tomorrow, Itakura," he added with a casual wave, revealing her name. As he shrugged on his coat and adjusted his tie, he informed her he was stepping out for a bit. She didn't look amused. "Take care," she replied dryly. "And may you have fortune in battle." He grinned oddly, cigarette in hand. "I hope this one puts up a bit of a fight," he muttered to himself, clearly looking forward to whatever awaited him, before slamming the office door behind him. Later that night, in what appeared to be a different dimension, a grand castle shimmered with purple aurora-like hues drifting in the air. The gates creaked open as 4 figures stepped inside. It was the Demon King's castle. As the group approached, they became clearer: an orange-haired human male, a female elf, a female beastman with cat ears, and another human girl. The orange-haired man grinned widely, basking in his triumph at reaching this point. His name was Savior Leo, a human from Japan, reincarnated into this world by the will of a goddess. A reincarnator, as the people of this world would call him. He had once been a bewildered soul floating between realms, receiving a divine plea from a radiant goddess who had begged him to save her world from the demon tribe. She had gifted him incredible power and declared him the world's savior. Since then, Leo had fought tirelessly, hunting demons and protecting innocents with the companions he'd gathered. Smiling warmly at them, he said, "It's thanks to you all that I've come this far." "Thank you." His team stood proudly: Ran, the cat-eared beastman, Lilia, the elven swordswoman, and Mahal, the magician. As Leo turned back to gaze at the gloomy, glimmering castle under the moonlight, he clenched his fists with resolve. "Let's go," he declared, marching forward. Inside the throne room of the castle, the gray-haired man from earlier, now seated like royalty, held a phone in one hand and a cigarette pack in the other. As Leo burst through the doors, he shouted, "Demon King, prepare yourself. Your reign ends today." The gray-haired man exhaled smoke slowly, then looked up and smirked. "Jo, you came too late." His face became visible as Leo and his companions froze in confusion. Whispers passed among the girls as they exchanged puzzled glances. "If he's not the Demon King, then who is he?" one of them murmured. Standing up from the throne, the man offered a slight bow toward the women. "Apologies. I didn't mean to startle you," he said coolly. Walking toward the adventurers, his hands tucked in his pockets and his cigarette back in his mouth, he added, "I'm just a humble repossession agent." The girls blinked, clearly baffled. "A what?" they asked. Leo stepped forward, clenching his fists. "You suspicious fiend. Where's the Demon King?" The man chuckled. "Had him step out for a bit. I'm actually here for you today." Leo's brows furrowed. "What?" The man leaned closer, eyes narrowing with familiarity. "Tanaka Naruto," he said. Leo flinched at the name. Mahal echoed it, confused. "This is Savior Leo Celestia." At that, 2 visible cracks appeared on Leo's face. The gray-haired man, still smirking, glanced at him. "You've really risen in the world, haven't you?" he said mockingly. "Dragging along women who aren't even fit for combat. Just to play Mr. Savior?" Then, without warning, he stepped behind Leo and whispered coldly into his ear. "In your past life, after stalking women while on probation, you took an out-call prostitute." Sweat trickled down Leo's face. "And you killed her. You bastard." A flash of memory stabbed through Leo's mind. Still reeling, he stepped back in horror as the man continued, unwavering. "In other words, scum remains scum, no matter the world." The man's eyes sparkled ominously. "Get it?" Leo forced a confused, nervous chuckle. What are you talking about?" I'd never do something like that. Ignoring him, the man turned to the women. Do you all truly stick by this guy's side willingly? The companions hesitated, then Mahal stepped forward first. He said he saved our village, and forced me to follow him. I regret it. Ran trembled. He saved me from slave traders, then used that to control me. I was scared of what he'd do if I disobeyed. Lilia exhaled shakily, eyes shut. I thought it was for peace, but all it brought was bloodshed. When I tried to stop him, he threatened to kill me. The man turned back to Leo. So they say, he said simply. Leo stammered. It's a misunderstanding. They're just confused. The man's eyes narrowed. A misunderstanding? Ha! Panic rose in Leo's throat. No. This isn't how it's supposed to go. Sweat poured from his brow. His thoughts spiraled. No. In a fit of desperation, he ignited his flame magic and screamed, "Shut up." Maxi flame, he bellowed, hurling a blazing inferno toward the man and the girls. A deafening explosion erupted. Smoke clouded the room. Leo stood still, staring at the inferno. For a moment, he thought he'd done it. His laughter grew, first a chuckle, then a maniacal cackle. That serves him right, he shouted. Anyone who threatens my world can burn to ashes for all I care. But then, a voice rang out from the smoke. Nice. Leo's grin vanished. The man emerged, unharmed, walking slowly toward him, eyes gleaming like lightning. I like guys with spirit, he said with a smirk. You know? Leo's voice cracked. Why didn't it work? The man calmly put away his cigarette pack and lit a new one. But, he said as he glanced at the terrified girls, a guy who abuses women. His tone shifted, deadly serious. Is lower than shit. Leo trembled. What is this guy? The man exhaled smoke, completely unbothered. Me? I received a request, from the god of this world. Leo's heart sank. She said, the power I gave to Leo. I want you to collect it, and send him back to his original world. Eyes wide, sweat dripping, Leo whispered, collect it. Before the man could finish, Leo backed away, trembling. Don't come any closer. Got it. He drew his sword, warning again. I'm serious. This won't end well for you. The man advanced a step. Leo shrieked, I told you not to come closer. With a yell, he charged, flames engulfing his blade. But the man calmly lifted a business card, blocking the sword. Instantly, the flame extinguished. Leo blinked in disbelief. Oh right, the man said nonchalantly. I haven't introduced myself yet. Smoke drifted from the card as he held it up. I'm from the Lotus Collection Agency. President Hasuda. A pleasure to meet you. The card read, abilities, bodies, debts. We'll repossess anything. Still grinning, Hasuda's eye lit up. Tanaka Naruto, he said, puffing on his cigarette. That power of yours? I think I'll be repossessing it now. Leo's world crumbled. He saw the wary looks of the girls and snapped. Hyperventilating, he yanked a ring chain from inside his clothes. Dom IIT, he screamed, hurling the glowing chain. Dark purple light enveloped it, wrapping around each of the girls and dragging them toward him. Hasuda watched, stunned. I refuse to accept this. Leo shouted. Clutching the ring tighter, he turned to Hasuda and growled, Hey, you shitty president. Get the hell outta here. Fight me. Or else. He grabbed Mahal by the hair, yanking her upward as she cried out in pain. I'll kill every last one of these women, he threatened, licking her face with a depraved grin. The others gasped in horror.
Mahal collapsed, weeping.
Ran, furious and tearful, snapped. You're not a savior. You're a monster wearing human skin. Leo, enraged, yanked the chain to hurt her. Shut up. Still seething, he ranted. So what if I used women? So what if I killed people I didn't like? This world needs me. But cracks began spreading across his face and neck. He was falling apart, literally and metaphorically. Hasuda-san observed the scene quietly, the cigarette between his lips glowing faintly as smoke curled around him. His true colors are finally showing, he thought. He just needs one last push. Grinning widely, Hasuda exhaled a thick spiral of smoke. You know, he said casually, the last guy I collected from was saying something pretty similar. Is that a trend these days? Leo's face continued to crack, the whites of his eyes beginning to flush red. He grunted in pain. Hasuda closed his eyes and chuckled, his voice almost carefree. Well, when it comes to the kind of things good-for-nothings come up with. Leo looked at him, bewildered. Every single one of them ends up being the same, Hasuda finished, his smirk curling unnaturally at the edges.
Leo, now burning with fury, let out a loud, guttural scream.
The cracks on his face had deepened, and his eyes were bloodshot. Desperately, he shouted,
Somebody.
He ignited the chain in his hand with fire magic, launching it toward the crying, chained-up girls. Flames rushed toward Hasuda-san as well, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he simply snapped his fingers. In an instant, the fire vanished. The chains dissolved into nothing, and the remaining tendrils of purple aura fizzled out into the air. Where Leo had stood moments ago, a dark-haired, hunched man took his place, his figure smaller, more pathetic. The chain and sword clattered to the ground with a hollow echo. The girls flinched at the sound, startled, then realized, the chain had lost its power. The man Leo, now trembled in place, his strength visibly draining away as he dropped to his knees. Hasuda approached him calmly, holding out a glowing, alien-like stone. From its center pulsed remnants of a dark purplish aura. Repossession complete, Hasuda announced, his voice calm but final. Looking down at the shaking figure, he added, much appreciated. He tightened his grip on the crystal and continued, you showed your true colors so splendidly, so the repossession went cleanly. Then he asked, so? How does it feel, being back in the body of Tanaka Naoto after all this time? Leo, now unmistakably Tanaka, mumbled in disbelief, his voice barely audible. He stared at his hands, trembling. His face, now pale and disheveled, twisted in horror as he touched his hair and cheeks. The girls looked on in stunned silence. Is that Lao? Mahal asked. Lilia shook her head slowly. No way. Tanaka's voice grew frantic. I'm not someone else. Give it back. God gave it to me. Give it back to me. He slammed his fists against the floor, his cries echoing across the castle hall. Hasuda, eyes glowing orange and cigarette still lit, looked at him coolly. You think God regretted it? He asked. Choosing the wrong person? In the dim light, Tanaka's true face was finally visible, ugly, unkempt and broken. He sat there shaking, muttering, that's impossible. I'm... But Hasuda cut him off. You're just Tanaka Naoto-kun. With that, he placed the cigarette back between his lips and without warning, kicked Tanaka hard across the chest. The impact sent him sprawling. You gave Katagi-san a lot of trouble, Hasuda muttered as he stepped on his chest. But this ends now. Glaring down at him, he asked coldly, was it worth it? Tanaka, clutching Hasuda's ankle in desperation, began to beg. Please forgive me. Please. I won't do it again. Hasuda ignored him, pulling out his flip phone and speaking calmly into it. Yes, this is Hasuda from Lotus. I've secured the body. Can you come now? The others stood in silence, speechless, shocked. Snapping the phone shut, Hasuda glanced at Tanaka and said, now then. I'll give you a chance. He grinned, his tone eerily cheerful. A chance to be reborn. A familiar light began to glow from the slightly open castle doors behind him. But before anyone could react, a truck roared through the door, shattering it completely as it swerved into the room, stirring up smoke and dust. Its headlights blazed. Someone stepped out of the cab. Hasuda raised a hand to shield his eyes from the glare. Yo. That was fast, he greeted casually. The figure, draped in dark green robes, replied, just came back from a business partner. Hasuda chuckled. You've always been a great help, Master of Cargoes. Lumbering behind the man was an enormous octopus-like alien creature, its eyes eerie and its body grotesque. Tanaka screamed, "Monster!" The girls stood frozen, too stunned to speak. As the two shadows loomed over the cowering Tanaka, the Master of Cargoes asked, "Is this the merchandise?" "Yup," Hasuda confirmed. "It looks dirty, but I guarantee the contents are safe." The Master of Cargoes inspected Tanaka. "I was looking for a miner. A goblin, huh? I think I'll use the transformation thread for ghouls." Tanaka paled. "Transformation? What are you talking about?" Before he could say more, the Master of Cargoes grabbed his head and stared deep into his eyes, his own glowing lemon green. "No damage.
Nodika.
This is good." Turning to Hasuda, he raised 3 fingers. "How about this? Since the armored ones are expensive." Hasuda smiled. "Deal. You can probably get 200 years out of him. The rest is up to you, Master." Tanaka could only watch in horror as the agreement unfolded before his eyes. The Master of Cargoes grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward the truck. "Stop. Let me go." Tanaka screamed. Ignoring him, the Master hurled him into the back of the truck. It looked empty at first, until Tanaka noticed a scraggly chained leg lying near him. A low groan echoed through the truck. He turned, and saw them. Dozens of goblin-like creatures with bloodshot eyes, spit dripping from their fangs, surrounded him. "Help! Cold! Cold!" they muttered as they closed in. "Damn it! Let me go!" Tanaka shrieked, struggling against them. His eyes darted to the back of the truck, still open. Outside, Hasuda and the Master of Cargoes stood, watching. Tanaka lunged toward the door, screaming, "Is this it? The chance to be reborn you talked about?" Hasuda grinned, fulfilled. "Exactly. You'll be reborn." He paused. "But as a human? I don't think I ever promised that." Before Tanaka could say more, the goblins grabbed him, and the truck doors slammed shut behind him. The back bore a large smiling emoji sticker. Inside, muffled, unearthly sounds echoed. The girls shuddered. The Master of Cargoes returned to the cab, started the engine, and called out. "Then, President Hasuda, use us again sometime. We'll be waiting." The truck rolled out through the broken gates. Now alone, Hasuda blinked, realizing the girls were still there, trembling, eyes fixed on him. He turned slowly. "Oh, you're still here?" They didn't respond. "Well," he said, adjusting his coat, "Tanaka's changed jobs. From savior to something else entirely. Shouldn't you go home now?"
Mahal hesitated.
"That's, even if you put it that way." Hasuda offered a sheepish smile. "All right. My bad." He clapped his hands once. And just like that, the girls vanished, transported from the castle in an instant. Looking up at the ceiling, Hasuda muttered to the girls, not to be fooled by scum like that again. Outside, the moon shone brightly in the clear blue sky as he exited the castle, hands in his pockets. Reaching into his chest pocket for a cigarette, he pulled out an empty pack and sighed. "Damn it," he muttered, frustrated. "I should buy some on the way home." The air around the castle looked noticeably cleaner than before. The scene transitioned to a cloudy dark green sky stretching over a metropolis-like city known as Black Dragon Castle. Towering buildings crowded together, casting shadows over the streets. A woman dressed in sparkling white, her outfit and long hair gleaming, walked nervously through the city. She glanced around, clearly lost, and mumbled, "Lotus-san's office. It should be around here." Her heels clicked against the pavement as she added under her breath, "These city roads and buildings are too complicated." Passing by a narrow alley where a scraggly man sat slumped against a wall, she frowned and continued walking. A flock of black birds screeched and took off into the sky just as she bumped into someone. She winced and looked up to find herself facing 2 imposing men. One had his entire face wrapped in bandages, with only one red eye showing. The other was bald, wearing sunglasses, and had veins bulging from his neck and forehead. The bandaged man glared at her with such intensity that she shuddered and instinctively apologized. Her radiant, terrified expression briefly startled him. With a sigh, he looked away and walked off. Internally, she screamed, so scary. Suddenly, the veined man barked, "Oi. That's probably it," the cash exchange spot Big Bro mentioned, pointing at a nearby open shop with a large cigarettes banner overhead. An elderly woman sat calmly behind the counter, reading a book. The sparkling woman's eyes followed their direction. "Cash exchange spot?" she murmured, still watching from a safe distance. As they approached the shop, the veined man smirked while the bandaged one slapped a handful of colored crystals onto the counter. "Yo, use your ability to turn these into cash," he said bluntly. The old woman examined the crystals, nodded, and began counting. The veined man urged her to splurge on them, clearly hoping for a generous payout. After a few minutes, she calmly dropped a small stack of bills and 4 bronze coins on the counter. "Here you go. Minus the fee," she said. The veined man's expression darkened. "Huh? That's it? You're ripping us off, you hag," he shouted. The bandaged man slammed his hands on the counter, equally enraged. From the sidelines, the sparkling woman watched anxiously, wondering if the old lady would be all right. With a sneer, the veined man brandished a weapon and leaned forward. "Can't see their value, huh? Want me to teach you with some pain?" The old woman didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked up slowly and asked, "Are you talking to me?" But before they could reply, her body began to transform. Scales spread across her skin, her lower half becoming a snake's tail. A long tongue flicked out as she hissed, "Silence, you brats." Everyone froze as the monstrous form of the woman wrapped her tail around both men. "You're ripping me off with this trash," she growled, tossing the crystals onto the counter. "Maybe I should rip that big mouth of yours off instead." She grabbed the veined man by the jaw and leaned in with a malicious grin. "Or should I make one of your skills better, huh?" she hissed, her gaze piercing him. Sweat streamed down his face as he trembled with fear. At that moment, a cheerful voice cut through the tension. "Oh?" someone said casually, approaching the shop. The sparkling woman turned toward the voice, and immediately recognized the smiling man who approached, Hasuda-san. Waving at the old woman, Hasuda greeted her with a grin. "You're looking lovely, as always, Aunt Sheba." At once, her monstrous form vanished. Her face softened into a sweet, grandmotherly smile. "Lotus, no, if it isn't the president," she beamed. Still holding the 2 thugs, she giggled. "It's been a while." Hasuda replied with a shrug. "I've been busy lately." "You haven't changed." "Always working," she said fondly, her tail still wrapped around one of the men. Hasuda laughed. "Poor people don't get time off." With that, Aunt Sheba hurled both men and their coins to the ground. "Now scram, brats," she bellowed, her face contorting into a demon's snarl as she released a dark, oppressive aura. "If you flap your tongue again, I'll devour you head to toe." The thugs ran off in terror. Shaking her head, Aunt Sheba returned to her human form. "Honestly, how horrible. Collectors these days are just good-for-nothing thugs." Hasuda, now standing at the counter, replied, "There've been a lot of reincarnations lately. A bunch of rookies are flooding in." He fished inside his chest pocket as the sparkling woman peeked from behind a wall. Aunt Sheba smiled. "But rather than the crystals." He interrupted her with a smirk. "I always bring you the good stuff. This one's the real deal." He pulled out a crystal, one he had retrieved from Tanaka-kun. "Happy." She examined it with interest. "This is a good deal. These will go fast." Hasuda nodded. "It's a tough job. If we last 5 years, we're lucky." He went on to explain, since the gods couldn't interfere directly in the world, it was the agency's job to retrieve the powers of reincarnated people who had become unnecessary. The gods, desperate to improve the performance of their worlds, granted powers recklessly. When those same powers ruined the world or triggered chaos, the gods came crying to the collection agency. "It's no surprise we don't last long," Hasuda added, gazing off in thought. Aunt Sheba handed him a fat brown envelope. "You've been doing this so long. Got any tips?" He blinked. "Tips?" Thinking for a moment, he finally said, "It's like peeling the shell off a raw egg without breaking it. You want to pull out just what's inside. Aunt Sheba stared at him, speechless. I don't get it, she laughed, waving him off. Come again soon. Thanks, Hasuda said, waving back as he walked away. Just as he passed the corner, he heard a voice calling out to him. He turned, and found himself facing the sparkling woman. I'm Arteus, she introduced herself nervously. Thank you for taking care of Tanaka Naruto. Hasuda remained casual. That request went well. Before he could say more, she looked concerned. What is he doing now? Can you tell me? Lighting a cigarette, Hasuda smirked. Ah, him? He's starting over. Working really hard. Working? She repeated, confused. Yeah. His body's been modified a lot. Should take about 200 years, he said, as we cut to a shot of a tearful goblin mining away in a dark cavern, Leo's blue cape draped over his shoulders. Arteus gasped. That's too much. Too much. Hasuda replied coldly, smoke curling from his lips. That's an annoying thing to say. We're the Black Dragon Fort's collection agency, you know. She stood frozen as several creepy-looking men began gathering behind her. He continued, voice low and firm. Your godly morals and ethics? They don't work here. You were the one who asked for it, weren't you? She opened her mouth, but he cut her off again. Listen, young lady. If you want to stay beautiful, don't come here again. With that, he turned and walked away. Later, Hasuda sat on a bench in a quiet park, munching on a donut, his coat draped behind him. His phone rang. President, where are you now? Itakura asked on the other end. Heading home from the office, he replied mid-bite. She informed him that Bayaki had new clients asking for a meeting. There's a reincarnated person near your area who wants to live a calm life, she said. But only the happiness index looks abnormally high. As she spoke, a scene unfolded. A golden-haired young man cheerfully handed out drinks, saying, Everyone, here's your special mushroom tea. The crowd around him replied in unison, Thank you, Magna-sama. Smiling brightly, the man lifted his cup and said, Drink up. There's enough for everyone. Back at the park, Hasuda finished his donut, deep in thought. I don't know if it's just the happiness index, he muttered. A pause. Got it. I'm coming back now, he said, standing up, slipping on his coat, and heading back toward the office. Back at the office, Hasuda-san was seated across from a visitor, calmly presenting his business card. Behind the couch stood Itakura-san and another man in a suit with striking green hands. The guest, dressed like an ancient Japanese monk, introduced himself with a slight scowl as Kagaya Mira. With evident frustration, he explained his purpose. I'd like to request an ability collection, he said. Hasuda offered a casual smile and introduced himself. Yo, I'm Hasuda, the president. Nice to meet you. Kagaya glanced wearily at the card in his hand and responded, Ah yes. Hasuda then gestured to the two men standing behind him. The big guy in the back is our collection agent, Oya Yagi. Oya Yagi, a crocodile beast man, as the green hands hinted earlier, gave a friendly yo in greeting. Hasuda continued, and next to him is our information gatherer, Itakura. Kagaya hesitated, flustered. Ah, I see. Well, he stammered, dabbing sweat from his brow. Hasuda leaned in slightly. Mind sharing the details of your request? Still fidgeting, Kagaya began. He explained that a reincarnator had recently been welcomed into their world, but the scene transitioned into a flashback. Kagaya was shown handing a glowing jade-green yang-shaped bead to a cheerful blonde man. Kagaya had asked, Are you really okay with just this? Just crafting skills? With a radiant smile, the man nodded. Yes. Living a slow life has always been my dream. Returning to the present, Hasuda tapped ash from his cigarette into a nearby tray and murmured, Slow life, huh? It's the trend these days. And then Kagaya explained that the happiness value in the region where the reincarnator resided had been rising at an extreme rate. His brow furrowed with worry. Maintaining world balance is necessary for proper world management performance, he said, now sweating more profusely. He stood abruptly and leaned forward, shouting, "If the performance keeps dropping like this, I won't be able to stay a god." Hasuda, flipping through the case file, frowned. These kinds of things are usually nothing but trouble. Kaguya bowed desperately. "Please. You're our only hope." With a faint smile, Hasuda replied, "The fee is strictly Toraihon, half of what's collected." "If that's fine, we'll take the case," he said, his eyes glinting menacingly. Later, Hasuda and Oya Yagi were seen walking through a forest. Oya Yagi now appeared human, though his boisterous personality hadn't changed. "Boss, what do you think?" he asked cheerfully. "My looks. They've improved, right?" Hasuda thought to himself that previously, Oya Yagi had only managed to change his skin color. Aloud he replied flatly, "A bit more than before." As they continued walking, Oya Yagi commented, "It's been a while since I joined a collection job with you, boss. I've grown a bit, haven't I?" Still focused, Hasuda replied, "I'm counting on you." Eventually, they reached a massive gate lined with tall fences and barbed wire. "That's it," Oya Yagi said. "The village." Looking up at the towering entrance, he asked, "How tall is this thing?" Hasuda eyed it skeptically. "Looks more like a prison." Grinning, Oya Yagi asked, "So where do we sneak in?" Hasuda scoffed. "Idiot. For something like this, we go in openly. We greet them right at the front. That's business 101, remember that." Oya Yagi lagged behind, stunned. "Seriously?" Inside the picturesque village, under a clear blue sky, life moved peacefully. Villagers herded sheep, did laundry, and giggled behind berry bushes. The blonde-haired man from earlier walked past them, his presence causing a ripple of joy. "Lord Magna!" Villagers cried out, greeting him warmly. Turning back, Magna smiled. "Morning, everyone. It's another nice day." Girls blushed and whispered about how wonderful he was, utterly smitten by his charm. Elsewhere in the village, a group of villagers gathered around a crying young woman named Marie, who sat hunched over beside a tree stump. "You're worrying too much," a man told her gently. An old man beside him nodded, and an elderly woman added, "He'll come back eventually." Marie sobbed. "My husband left the village 3 months ago. What if something's happened to him too?" Before she could finish, a voice called her name, "Marie." A hand gently touched her face. She looked up to see Magna kneeling before her with a calm, cunning smile. "I sent Thomas to a distant town to gather tea ingredients," he said. "It's an important task." Still crying, Marie stammered, "But it's so hard." Magna handed her a flask containing a strange purple liquid. "Try drinking this," he offered kindly. Marie hesitated, eyeing the contents. "This is..." Before she could finish, Magna interjected, "I prepared it especially for you. It's a special tea." She sipped it. The liquid traveled through her body, glowing light purple before darkening into something ominous. Her expression shifted, serene, almost entranced. "Ha, delicious," she murmured with an unsettling smile. Standing, her earlier despair vanished. I was so down about this, but now it doesn't seem like such a big deal." The villagers encouraged her, saying that a smile suited her best and praising her spirit. Magna stood up, still smiling that unnerving smile. "Good." The villagers started whispering again. "It's all thanks to Lord Magna. The village has really brightened up since he came. We can't thank him enough." Magna's expression twitched at the adoration. Internally, he thought yes, as expected. To protect this happiness, I'll do anything. Just then, a commotion erupted as Hasuda and Oya Yagi stumbled into a field, struggling amidst a flock of sheep. One sheep was chewing on Hasuda's suit. Annoyed, Hasuda turned to Oya Yagi. "How long have you been sneaking around like this?" The villagers, now alert, eyed them suspiciously. "Who are they?" someone asked. Completely unbothered, Oya Yagi picked up a lamb and grinned. Pretty cute, isn't she?" Hasuda frowned. "You really like that kind of thing, huh?" Magna, now tense, wondered who these strangers were. Hasuda spotted him and smirked. Climbing over the fence, he called out, "Nice village, Ito Tokushi. The villagers whispered among themselves. Ito Tokushi? Is there someone by that name? Ignoring the murmur, Hasuda and Oyayagi approached. Could it be Lord Magna? Someone asked. Magna stiffened. Why do they know that name? Who are they? Smiling confidently, he stepped forward and extended a hand. Hello. Are you looking for someone? I'm Magna, the village chief, more or less. Hasuda chuckled. Thanks for the politeness. We're from the Lotus Collection Service. He handed Magna a business card. Oyayagi, grinning sheepishly, introduced himself as Hasuda's subordinate. Hasuda took a step forward. We're here on behalf of a god. Magna froze. We came to collect your ability. Still puffing on his cigarette, Hasuda repeated, your power. I'm here to collect it, Ito Tokushi. Magna stared at the business card in his hand, chuckling awkwardly. Ito Tokushi? That must be a mistake. My name is Magna. Hasuda raised an eyebrow and checked the file. Huh? That's strange. Is the data wrong? He glanced at Oyayagi. Hey, read it. Oyayagi began, Ito Tokushi. Graduated from W University. Joined T Corporation. Managed the company while organizing self-improvement seminars. Magna went pale. Removing his cigarette, Hasuda asked again, a mistake really? Ito Tokushi. Even if that's true, Magna said hesitantly, my name now is Magna. I just want to make everyone in this village happy. The villagers, moved, called out to him. Lord Magna. That's the only thing a man lives for, Magna declared. Hasuda laughed. You've got noble aspirations. The villagers snapped. Lord Magna is a splendid person. Stop saying weird things about him. Outsiders. Get out. Someone hurled a stone. Oyayagi leapt forward and caught it. Boss, he called. Hasuda sighed. Oh boy. The whole village is in love with him. From a distance, Magna watched the chaos unfold, villagers defending him, shouting profanities at the intruders. A dark glint flashed in his eyes as he smiled ominously. Magna raised his hand, asking everyone to calm down. With a smile, he assured them he was fine. Turning to face the intruders, he said, You're from the collection service, right? Mr. Hasuda and Mr. Oyayagi. The two men stared at him in confusion. Magna continued without hesitation, stretching his hand out. He asked if they'd like to have some tea at his house. Oyayagi, clearly irritated, snapped back, demanding to know if Magna was messing with them. But Hasuda gestured for him to calm down and with a smirk, said he was genuinely touched by the warm welcome. Magna, still smiling, replied that entertaining guests was also part of a village chief's responsibilities. Still fuming, Oyayagi shouted, Boss? Are you seriously going? But Hasuda calmly responded that he could wait outside if he preferred, then walked toward Magna, who was more than willing to lead them. As they walked, Hasuda thought to himself, so then, will it be a demon or a snake? This should be interesting. A few minutes later, Magna welcomed them into his home. Oyayagi looked around, impressed by the stylish interior, while Hasuda simply greeted them with a casual yo. Magna chuckled and thanked them as he offered them seats, then stepped aside to prepare some tea. When he returned, he carefully set the teacups on the table. Hasuda, getting straight to the point, asked if they could now discuss the main issue. Still smiling in his eerily cheerful way, Magna replied that of course they could. As he poured a purplish liquid from a kettle into their cups, he said, You came to collect my power, right? Oyayagi, puzzled, asked if Magna even understood what collection meant. Magna handed them the teacups and replied politely, urging them to drink before it got cold. The two men eyed the tea with suspicion. Ha! Oyayagi muttered. Even if you say that, there's no way I'm drinking, but before he could finish, he turned and saw Hasuda gulping the tea down. Seriously? He exclaimed. Hasuda calmly said it was rude not to drink what was offered. Begrudgingly, Oyayagi apologized and picked up his cup. Magna, watching them closely, asked if the taste suited Hasuda's palate. Hasuda nodded, saying it was just right for him, but then placed a hand over Oyayagi's cup. Might be a bit too soon for the kid, he added. Magna's smile faltered for a split second as he glared with quiet hatred, but quickly recomposed himself. That's quite rude, he said, still smiling. By the way, my power, it's quite convenient. He held up his index finger and created a glowing magic circle around it. Still grinning, he explained that it wasn't just useful for mixing potions or fixing broken things. As he brought his hand down to the table, the glow touched the surface, and the wooden table immediately softened into a puddle of mud. The table vanished, replaced by the same green magic circle from earlier. I can also make traps like this, Magna said, still wearing his unnerving smile. Suddenly, the floor beneath Hasuda and Oyayagi cracked, and both men plummeted into darkness. Magna, standing above, smirked and waved them off. Goodbye. We probably won't meet again, he said, swiping his hand to reset the room to its original state before walking away from the now empty dining table. Down in the darkness, Hasuda lit his lighter, illuminating both the area and his cigarette. Man, we got dropped pretty far. What is this place, a waterway, he muttered, scanning the area. He sniffed the air. Smells weird. Hearing no reply, he called out, Oyayagi, you alive? Oyayagi, lying face down on the floor, groaned. But then his eyes caught something odd. He muttered, widening his eyes. He jolted upright with a scream. There, lying beside him, was a human skull covered in purple mushrooms growing out of the bones. Hasuda winced and covered one ear. So noisy. It echoes in here. He crouched beside the skull and examined it. What is this? A mushroom or something? Still shaken, Oyayagi stared at the fungus. Mushrooms that parasitize skeletons? But then Hasuda looked up at him and narrowed his eyes. Hey, what's that on your head? Oyayagi froze. Huh? What is it? He rushed over to the waterway and looked at his reflection. Sticking out from his forehead were two mushrooms, like horns. What is this? He screamed, clawing at them to no effect. They won't come off. Hasuda exhaled slowly through his cigarette.
No wonder.
I thought it smelled worse than a sewer. It's everywhere. Probably that guy's doing. He took another puff. But a trick like this isn't going to work on me. Then glancing at Oyayagi, he warned, don't breathe in too much. Still on all fours and panicking, Oyayagi snapped, wish you'd said that sooner. Hasuda ignored him. Anyway, we've seen what they're capable of. Those who defy Lord Magna, they all end up down here, nutrients for the mushrooms. Oyayagi looked up in horror, speechless. Hasuda grinned, a glint in his eyes. All right then, Oyayagi. How about a tour through the dark side of Happy Village? And maybe a little chat. He stood, and they began walking deeper into the darkness. But suddenly, Oyayagi tensed. Boss. Something's coming. They both froze. A mutated foot stepped into view, flesh twisted, sprouting fungal growths. Hasuda held the lighter up to reveal the figure, a disheveled humanoid with orange hair, covered in mushroom clusters, clutching a bag. The creature stammered as it tried to speak, arms reaching out. Oyayagi screamed in terror, "Ouch. What the hell are you?" Hasuda-san called out with a stern expression, addressing the lone figure in the shadows. You there. Tell me, were you thrown down here by that bastard Magna? The figure finally responded, his voice cautious. Are you from the village? And, who are you? As he spoke, a flicker of recognition crossed his face, as though reminded of a familiar back silhouette from the past. Hasuda-san replied bluntly, We're just collection agents. We came to collect the power of that fraud Magna. The man stared in disbelief. Collect? You can take Magna's power? Is something like that even possible? Hasuda-san gave a casual smile. Removing his cigarette from his mouth, he explained, Yeah. But to collect the power cleanly, we have to strike at the exact moment his true nature is exposed. He took a slow step forward. So we're gonna have to shake things up a bit. The figure remained speechless as Hasuda-san casually turned to leave. Well then, sorry for all the noise. Let's go, Yagi, he said, motioning to his partner. The figure grunted, then called out desperately, wait. He staggered forward, adding, my wife, tell everyone, tell them to run. Hasuda-san stopped and looked back, unimpressed. And what's in it for us? He asked. Tell them yourself. Still gripping the bag tightly, the man groaned. I can't. Then, mustering all his strength, he turned to the villagers nearby who had just begun to leave and shouted, I'll tell you the master secrets. Everything I know. The secrets of this village too. Dropping to all fours, he pleaded through stammering breaths, that's why, please. I don't have any time left. Suddenly, a voice nearby interrupted, oh. The man's head jerked up, eyes lighting up with sudden hope. Hasuda-san approached slowly, a small smile playing on his lips. Now that's not a bad proposal, he said. These secrets of yours, let's hear them. A few minutes later, they were seated in a circle on the floor, gathered around a small fire pit. The man began his tale. He claimed that everyone in the village had been brainwashed by Magna. Hasuda-san leaned forward, clearly intrigued. How the hell is he controlling the villagers? He asked. Mushrooms, the man replied, breaking off a small sprout growing from his right hand. Whoever eats these mushrooms feels an overwhelming euphoria. Using that bastard took control of the entire village. Yogi's eyes widened.
Seriously?
Hasuda-san muttered thoughtfully, mushrooms, huh? I see. The man continued. He explained that the village had originally been small and poor, yet peaceful. The residents helped one another, living humbly. Then one day, Magna arrived. Everything changed. He brought with him strange powers, advanced technology, and medicine with miraculous effects. In no time, the entire village had become obsessed with him. But bit by bit, the man said, something started to feel off. He began recounting an earlier memory. In a flashback, a girl named Marie called out cheerfully to an orange-haired boy named Thomas. And then Master Magna appeared like a hero and solved everything, she said with a bright smile. Master Magna really is amazing, isn't he? Thomas smiled back faintly, but inside, he was conflicted. All Marie ever talks about is Magna, he thought. Master Magna this, Master Magna that. He finally asked, just what are you trying to do? Are you really trying to turn Magna into some kind of god? Marie stood abruptly, irritated. What do you mean, what am I trying to do? To us, Lord Magna is like a god. Taken aback, Thomas called her name softly, but Marie's eyes had grown cold, her expression blank. Do you need a reason to worship a god? She asked. The memory ended, revealing that the man speaking to Hasuda-san was Thomas. He continued his story grimly. By the time I realized what was happening, most of the villagers had become Magna's servants. Thomas had gathered a small group of sane individuals and began investigating Magna. They discovered that all the food provided by him had been laced with those euphoria-inducing mushrooms. Worse still, he was preparing to export them beyond the village to spread his influence further. We finally gathered solid proof, Thomas said. But at that moment, he recalled, a voice had interrupted them. Oh my! Startled, they turned to see Magna standing right behind them. He smiled coldly and said, a sewer rat gaining wisdom won't lead to happiness, you know? Back in the present, Thomas continued with a heavy tone. All of my comrades were drained of their nutrients by the mushrooms, until there was nothing left. They died. Yagi clenched his fists in rage. That bastard's an absolute piece of filth. Hasuda-san added, so he used villagers who got in his way, as ingredients for the brainwashing mushrooms.
Clever setup.
Thomas reached into the bag he'd been carrying and handed it to Hasuda-san. Inside were a keepsake from his fallen comrades and a letter. Please, Thomas begged. Make everyone, including Marie, open their eyes. His body began to collapse. Hasuda-san caught his hand gently. I got it, he said. Thanks for the good info. Leave the rest to us. Thomas smiled faintly, tears streaming down his face, before his body crumbled into ash. All that remained was a wedding ring and the letter addressed to Marie, now tied around it. Yagi, trembling with fury, broke the silence. Man, it's been a while since I've been this pissed. Hasuda lit a new cigarette, exhaled slowly, and replied, Thomas, don't you worry. He paused as they walked away from the ash. We always keep our promises. Later that night, the villagers gathered under the stars for a celebratory feast. At the far end of the table stood Magna, his arms raised as he called out cheerfully, thanking everyone for another wonderful day. The villagers erupted with joy, lifting their cups and shouting praises in unison. Give thanks to Master Magna. But just then, an explosion rang out nearby. Dust and debris filled the air, unsettling the cheerful crowd. From within the haze, a voice rang out. Yo. Magna turned sharply, his expression shifting as Hasuda-san emerged through the smoke, grinning. Looks like everyone's already gathered, Hasuda said. Guess we're a little late. As the dust cleared, he stepped forward with Yagi beside him. Master Magna's passionate welcome really held us up, Hasuda continued. We thought we'd return the favor, with a proper thank you. A big one. They stood atop the shattered dining tables. Maintaining his composure, Magna smiled.
I'm surprised.
How did you get in here? Yagi, eyes blazing, shouted, Shut it. Prepare yourself, you fucking monster. Hasuda-san turned to the villagers and raised his voice. Gather around. It's time you all saw the truth of this so-called happy village. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps us out and tells YouTube to show it to more awesome people like you.